If your house is giving you a ton of stress, particularly the tornado that blew up all over your house, then this episode is for you. Hi, this is Melissa Dillon, and I am your host today on Have More Time. This is a show for parents who want to live a happy life of joy with themselves and their kids and their spouse. So thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first episode, I encourage you to listen to the others and let me know what you think by leaving a review and subscribing, especially if you enjoy it, because my goal here is to support you on your journey on building a life that you love with your kids. And I feel like parents, we have the biggest job of all. I know there are a lot of resources out there that talk to this about building a life that you love, but not very many of them talk about building a life you love with your family. So here on Have More Time, a show that is brought to you by Raising Kindness, we are all about family, all about bringing you a life of happiness that is possible while also juggling all the things that you want to accomplish, including keeping your family happy and content. And one of those ways that you can do that is by keeping your home in order in the way that brings you joy. So notice I say keeping your home in order in a way that brings you joy. I know that all of us are different, and all the things that I say on this show are strictly recommendations. So based on my own experiences or things that I've read or things that I've learned about from others or experts that have written articles or books or have put out videos. I mean, I am a huge consumer of this information because it's something that I'm passionate about. Now, for you, it may be a little bit different where this is something that's important to you, but who has time to consume all this information? So I bring it to you and try to synthesize it in a way that is presentable and applicable to your life as a working parent. So now let's dive in. I am thinking, actually before we dive in, what I'm thinking is I'd love to put some more thought and organization in the way that I publish shows here. So I'm thinking that over the next several weeks, I'll be testing out a new way of publishing. So the first couple of days of the week will be all about your own personal development and achieving goals and things that you can feel and think of internally that may be a mindset shift or a couple little tweaks here and there that may not take up too much of your time to really dramatically transform your life for the better. Those kinds of things I will cover in the beginning of the week. Things that have to do with your home, with your kids, with your spouse, with things that are all about treating you to your own self-care, and that also includes your house, your home environment. All of those things I'll cover later in the week, because naturally when we're getting to Thursday, Friday, we're thinking about what we're going to be doing with our family and all the events going on that are personal events with our family and loved ones. So I hope that this format that I'm thinking about is something that's helpful for you. Let me know over the next few weeks if you have any of your own ideas. We will be opening up our community on raisingkindness.org, where you can pop over and actually subscribe now to be notified when comments are opened. So I intend on having every episode open for dialogue. I do not profess to be right about everything, and I do not profess to be the only way, the end-all, be-all of how you should run your life. No way. That is definitely not my goal here. But my goal is to love on you with as much knowledge as possible based on my own experiences as a parent, an entrepreneur, a creative, if you will. It's a newly found passion of mine, is to create. And I think that, just sharing the things that I've learned over the years. I'm now a mother of 3 boys, one of them fully grown and with a child of his own. So I have some experience to share with you, especially if you have younger ones at home. And maybe some of the things that I have to share might help you and might be the answer to some of the things that are on your mind. So that's my main goal here. So I hope that helps. Now I'm ready to dive in. So talking about your home, in particular the toys that may be scattered all over the place. And I totally know how it feels to step on a sharp Lego that was in the middle of the living room that you swore was picked up and it wasn't, or walking into a room and seeing a disaster all over the place with every single bucket dumped over, and it's just stressful and it's really hard to deal with, especially when you're feeling like you're the one who's going to have to clean it up if it's going to get cleaned up at all. Now, I will speak to all of you, no matter what level of a toy disaster that you have in your home, whether it's the buckets of toys dumped all over the place and they've just been laying there for days and they just seem to accumulate, if it's extreme like that, or something so small as your child is struggling with just picking up after they're done, and every once in a while you have things that are just laying out, but it's not a total disaster yet, or not at all. This episode will apply to you. There are going to be a lot of little nuggets that I share with you here, both as an early childhood educator and a parent that have worked for us in our home and in the classroom in the past, as well as what I observe in other preschools who have their own systems in place about teaching their children, their students, how to clean up after themselves, and some ways that a classroom is structured and set up very intentionally. If your preschool is well versed in proper classroom setup, then there is a method to the madness, and I think that it can really help if you bring some of this early childhood methodology into your home, especially when it comes to the toys. Now, before putting some methods into place, we've got to get your space cleaned up, right? So if you have a real disaster on your hands and you're like, oh man, there are toys everywhere, where do I even start? I encourage you to have a cleanup party with your family. So what this means is putting on a timer, and you can put the timer on multiple times if you need, but starting with 5 minutes, especially if you have preschoolers at home, start the timer for 5 minutes and play a game to see who can pick up the most toys. So you getting started on picking up one bucket and them getting started on choosing another bucket. So it's all about choice, allowing them to choose which bucket they'd like to clean up for the first timer. Ready, set, go. Put it on for 5 minutes, and of course you can clean up a lot faster than a preschooler, but allow them to feel that they've got a shot to beat you at cleaning up their toys first. So that's always a lot of fun. I recommend using YouTube, actually, of all places, for timers. We really enjoy putting a timer on from YouTube, and I mentioned this in previous episodes, where my son, actually, Bodhi, he loves to pick out the character in the the timer options. So in YouTube, if you search children's timer for 5 minutes, then a number of options comes up. You've got Mario Brothers and dinosaurs and tigers and dogs and all sorts of, it has spaceships and everything. And so you'll find something that your child can pick from, and maybe even have the kids take turns. If you have multiple children that are involved in this cleanup party, then you guys can each take turns to pick out a timer. So that makes it a lot of fun, and you can put it on your TV if you have a smart TV, or throw it on the phones, and that really motivates my child, because some of them are kind of game-like, where you're beating the video timer to creating the full dog, for example. And that can really, really help, using a timer that is colorful and fun to watch, and it'll teach them about time and teach them about how time passes no matter what, whether you're sitting there and doing nothing or sitting there and doing something. And it's always a great way, especially if you're making a party out of it. One caveat to this may be that your child is not accustomed to cleaning up after themselves at home, or they're not properly trained yet on how to clean up after themselves. This is especially for younger ones. So another recommendation is to talk to your child's teacher. If they go to preschool, then your child's teacher may have a process that they have in place. Either it's a cleanup song or a bell that they ring, that's the cue. And a great way for little ones to follow suit at home is to use the same exact method that the teacher uses, because it'll be easily recognized and they're trained to respond to that cue. And so that way you're not trying to reteach a new cue of using the fun YouTube timer. A great way to get the youngest ones to follow suit is to use something that they're already familiar with. And your teacher is a part of your child's village, so a part of your village, really. So don't be afraid to ask them if your child is having trouble cleaning up in the classroom, because then you guys can work together to find a solution. You don't have to be alone in coming up with a solution to train your child to clean. So always have that in your back pocket, that your teacher is experienced in working with many children and teaching them the process of proper cleanup and where things go, and having a center for each object, a place for everything in its place. And if you guys work together, you can truly resolve any cleanup challenges, especially if the consistency is going on and your child is getting the same message at home as they are at school. And if you have just a single little one at home, or you have all little ones at home that are not accustomed to cleaning, you may, for the very first time, if you struggle with doing the cleanup party, or you've spoken to the teacher and you're struggling with getting your child to cooperate, especially if it's a big disaster to start, it may seem overwhelming because your child may look at it and they have no idea where to start. Even if you are guiding them, they may just shut down from the process, and that's okay. So what you can do is just go ahead and clean up everything on your own. Get your spouse to get involved, or older siblings to get involved, to just get everything cleaned up and off the floor and put back in their boxes. If you don't have enough containers for all of the toys, then I highly recommend getting those cheap Tupperware boxes, or baskets, or some sort of way where each toy has its own place. So, for example, all the wood blocks go in the wood blocks box. Say that 5 times fast, wood blocks box. Or the Legos go in their own box, or the dolls go in their own box. So everything has a place. You can go to your local store, like a Target or a Walmart, to get these Tupperware boxes or baskets. You could also pick something up on Amazon, and I'll put a link in the description below, so that at least you have a place for everything. Having everything in a toy box, if that's the solution that you have right now, I definitely don't recommend, because that's a surefire way of everything just getting pulled out, especially when your child is trying to find a specific toy and it's all the way at the bottom. As far as their mind works, they need to get everything else out of the way to get to that bottom toy, and where is everything going to end up? On the floor again. So that's how those disasters get started, is because there's no clear message to your child that everything has a place and everything needs to be put in it. So getting those boxes is great. Another thing that you can do is you're starting to get an order together of things. So now we're going into the how to get everything organized. So now we've talked about the boxes. Where do all these boxes go? Or where can you put everything if you don't have a bunch of shelves? If you do have a large toy chest, what I recommend is putting your toys on rotation. So we have a few boxes of toys that are in the living room. We also have a 3-drawer Tupperware. I'm sure you've seen those, but they're pretty common in schools and stuff. Like, it's a 3-drawer Tupperware. It has a pull-out Tupperware drawers that are just in a larger plastic kind of little dresser that our son has in his room, and that's where all of his cars and small action figures and skateboards, fingerboards go. And then we also have some of his boxes that are tucked away up high where he can't get to them right away. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. But one idea that you can have or do with the big toy box, if you have one, something that we've done is the toys that are too large to fit in a small box, in a small Tupperware bin, then that's where all of those toys go, is they go in the large toy box. Also, overflow of any toys. So if you have an abundance of toy sets and you have an abundance of boxes, you can store boxes of toys that are on rotation or out of rotation in the toy box as well. So it gives the appearance of everything being very organized. Another thing that you can do is label everything. So you have your readers who can read labels, and I love putting labels on things anyway, just for myself. I like to label stuff. But also printing out pictures of the toys that are in the box. So a toy set of, say, wooden blocks, print out a picture of wooden blocks. If you have connect tracks, then print out a picture of the connect tracks. Something preferably in color. I've also printed out things that are not in color and had my son, Bodhi, color them to give him some chance of ownership. And then your little one can actually tape these pictures on the front of boxes. I got this idea from our son's Montessori school, actually, and I adored the idea. I thought, goodness, I have written labels with words, and he clearly cannot read. So how do I expect him to put his toys in the proper boxes? So that actually solved my problem of what was happening, which is he was doing great at putting things away, but eventually everything ended up in the wrong box and things started getting mixed up. So there was no real intention, and now we're stuck in the same place where he's starting to pull things out of little boxes and putting them on the floor in search of something that's not in its correct place. So that's what I recommend to solve for that. And then what you can do is every couple of weeks or so is rotate the toys. So what we'll do is I'll swap out the boxes that are in the living room, because that's his primary place of play. Swap them out for different boxes that are stored up high that he cannot reach. So the reason we put them out high so he can't reach is to keep them fresh. And lastly, there may be a ton of things that you have that may just need to be donated to children who can't afford to buy toys in the retail store. So there are plenty of great places you can donate. You can donate at your local YWCA, which is a temporary home for abused women with their children. And then you can also donate maybe to your local homeless children's school. So if you have one of those in your town, I would definitely look it up in your city if you have something like that. Or any homeless shelters that cater to a lot of children. There are more and more homeless children in major cities, especially here in San Diego. So I encourage you to look into that instead of just dropping them off at your local Salvation Army or something like that. You may want to consider just going ahead and donating it directly to the source where families can enjoy those toys for free. And then once you've had a chance to organize everything, so everything has a place, whether it's a box or a basket or a place on the shelf, everything has a label and or a picture that is very clear that your child has been a part of creating for themselves and their own toys. Once everything is organized, then it's time for training. So have a conversation with your family and talk about together having an open dialogue about what is expected, what are some ideas about how we can keep things clean in the future, and including your child and really hearing them in their own ideas will leave them feeling like they've contributed to the expectations for the home, and they'll have a deeper sense of pride. Instead of feeling like they're being told what to do, they'll feel a sense of ownership about what the family roles are in keeping a clean home, and that could really help. And then once you have an established expectation for how to keep the toys in their place and how to put things back and how to properly clean up, go ahead and do a role play. So this is an idea that was brought first to my attention in my early years as a preschool teacher, but then I was reminded of it again when I took a parenting course by Amy McCready. It's Positive Parenting Solutions, and in Positive Parenting Solutions, the online program, she mentions practicing that's a really big key, is role playing the rules. So taking turns, one's the parent, so you can start as the parent, your child can start as the child, or you can let them choose. Sometimes they think it's really silly to act like the parent telling you what to do, but that way, once they understand the cues of what you're expecting, and then they understand the response and they've had enough times to practice, that's when the magic starts to happen. After a while, they start to do it on their own, or they know your cues, they know the expectations, and they know the consequences of what happens when they don't take care of their toys or they don't put them away. So one of the consequences that we have in our home is to just lose the privilege of playing with that toy. If it can't be cleaned up, then we're going to have to put it away for the rest of the day. Or if you're taking your toy and you're throwing it against the wall, well, that's not okay either. So the consequence will be that it'll be taken and put up high where you can't damage the furniture or damage the walls, because that's not what we do in our family. We don't damage our things, we take care of them. So having those conversations proactively and then practicing it together, whether it be that they choose and role play to make the right choice or the wrong choice, it's okay. Sometimes it's really fun to go ahead and pretend, play out what could happen if you don't put your toys away. And uh-oh, you lost your toys, they're up high, and this is what's going to happen. Okay, let's try again. Let's try the role play again, and let's see what choice you make next time. And especially when you have siblings, then they really pick it up, because if they see the consequences or whatnot being applied to themselves and not to their siblings, then they're really not going to like that. And it starts to become a lot more evident that there are clear boundaries here, there are clear expectations, and that we take care of our home because we enjoy our home, we love to be in it, and part of that is taking care of our things. So I hope that this helps. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please let me know if you have any other ideas. If you go to raisingkindness.org, again, you'll have the opportunity to join our founding members club, and that way I'll be able to send you updates, and you'll also have access to my email address so that you can send me responses about your feedback about any of the episodes on this show, because it means so much to me that you get out of it as much love and attention to your life as I'm putting into this for you. So it is important to me to give you the right information that you're looking for. So thank you so much, and I look forward to talking with you next time.